Assalamualaikum everybody, my name is Dew Francis and welcome back to the Weekly Deen Show, where we talk about anything and everything under the Muslim sun, from social issues to current affairs and everything that you guys are going through, and sometimes we ask questions that are actually too deep. Think of it like a coffee shop conversation, but this time with cameras and with no gang fights, because we don't do that here. Tonight we are going to talk about something very simple but actually very hard to do: silence, stillness, and spiritual strength. What do Islam and Buddhism teach us about finding inner peace in a very, very noisy and relentless world? Because let's be real, we are distracted by so many things in today's world, from social media, work emails, family drama, and sometimes our mind just doesn't stop racing. So then the question is, how do we then find peace in a noisy world? In Islam, the Prophet Muhammad would retreat into stillness in the cave of Hira before revelation. Silence was his preparation for divine truth. While in Buddhism, monks dedicate their lives to meditation and mindfulness, making stillness a daily practice. So tonight we ask, what do these two traditions teach us about finding peace? Not just for dunya, but for our hearts and souls. And I promise you, tonight's episode will be the quietest, but the loudest for your hearts and soul. But before we dive deeper, let's hit the streets again to hear what people think of stillness.
When the world gets a bit too busy, some of us take different methods to calm down. To find out what these methods are, we're going to go on the street and ask people what they think. I'm with my new Mike Tyson. Stop. I'm going to ask people if they think that isolating themselves is a good thing or not. Let's go. Shane, what do you do when the world gets a bit too noisy?
Listen to music.
I plug in my earpiece and I read a book because it calms my mind.
Go out alone, read a book, listen to your musics.
Not everyone that is noisy.
Like your mom maybe sometimes?
I find peace in someone, in a special person. If you have lah. If you do not have, then you find peace in other ways, like going out with a friend.
Do you think that isolating yourself to calm down is healthy or not?
Yeah, definitely. For your mental wellness.
It's good to isolate yourself.
Sometimes you need space from everything.
It's not good to bottle up your feelings.
Depends on the person. If you're an outgoing person, I believe going out, having fun, do whatever you love.
It's normalized now, I guess.
So that's what people on the streets think when it comes to finding peace in a world that might get a bit too noisy. Back to you, Dew.
Silence is what most men want their wives to do at home, but sometimes we don't get what we want. Thank you for joining us today. Back at the studio, we have two very special guests to help us unpack what does silence and stillness actually mean. Our first guest, her name is Ustazah Nur Hidayah. A little bit of background on her: she's a content creator and teacher who shares Quran reflections and daily inspirations. She reminds Muslims to rediscover the spiritual calm that comes from dhikr, sabar, and connecting with Allah. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Lovely.
Dhikr. Zikir. I'm so sorry, Zikir. And our second guest, some of you might have read about him. His name is Pra Go Chun Kiang. What's very special about him is that he's actually one of the youngest monks in Singapore. He actually became a monk at 23 years old. He's known for his warmth and openness. He practices the Buddhist discipline of mindfulness and meditation. He participates in the traditional alms around Bedok South. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah,
Alms.
Yeah.
Alms. Okay. Look, guys, I'm not very good in faith. But yes, he practices in the traditional alms around Bedok. He practices in the traditional alms round in Bedok South and recently welcomed the Argentine ambassador to Pelalai Buddhist Temple.
Yep.
Correct. Thank you very much. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I guess today we're going to talk about stillness and finding strength in stillness, right? And I want to begin this conversation by asking you guys why silence and stillness matter and how do we practice that in our different faiths. So maybe Ustazah can go first.
Okay, thank you so much for having us here today. I think the topic on silence and stillness is something that we don't really talk about because we find that to be something that is very personal, right? We do it when we are able to. And interestingly, when we take a look at the concept in Islam, Islam actually teaches us that silence and moments of stillness is actually a means of worship towards God, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because especially that we are living in this super noisy and fast-paced world, right? We always feel the need to want to chase the next best thing. But silence and stillness is actually inviting us to be able to be present And I think that's very important. One of the many teachings that we learn from our Prophet ﷺ is that those who believe in God, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Day of Judgment, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرْ أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ, for you to be able to speak what is good or remain silent. So these are actually two options of goodness, in which that if you're able to give good, to say good, to do good, then you do good. But on the other hand is, if I'm not able to say what is good, if I'm not able to do what is good, the next best thing that I can do for myself is actually silence, because I'm going to be present. You know, if you think about the human experience, right? We are typically stuck or trapped in the past or in the future.
Correct.
In the past, because of the things that we cannot move on from, our traumas or struggles. Trapped in the future because of our anxieties of what's going to happen next. The future is very much bleak. But in the concept of Islam, when we invite silence and stillness into our lives, it helps us to be present in this particular moment. It helps us to be grounded and to be able to know that, okay, there is virtue in this moment of quiet. And I think we really need to do a lot more of this, especially living in today's time.
Oh, yeah, I think silence is very important. When we work, we need to think, we need to plan, very draining. So in the end, we also need to sleep. We need to sleep. So the rest and sleep is like recharging the mind, but we can't be sleeping the whole day, right? Yeah, so there's like a technique. I believe most religions should teach some kind of teaching, how to reflect, how to contemplate, or what kind of prayer to repeat to kind of recharge the battery of the mind. So having this kind of stillness will kind of give the mind certain neutrality. When the mind is agitated, the train of thoughts will be very different from a very calm mind. So it's more rational.
So do we only practice silence when we are going through something, or is it something that we need to carry on in our lives? So for example, right, gossiping. In a group of friends, everybody does that. So if let's say I join into the gossip, is that a sin, or where does that go under the faith?
Okay, from the Islamic perspective, gossiping is actually something that is sinful and prohibited, actually, because it does contribute to one of the diseases of the heart. Because if you think about it, maybe at that point in time when we speak about gossiping, at that moment it feels good because I'm talking about somebody, and then there's this common topic that we are discussing about. But what we don't see is that the damage that we are causing on the person's reputation, on the person's honor, whether they do it or not, but it's actually on us to be able to be accountable for the things that we do, for the things that we say. And I think this is where silence then becomes a virtue, because you know that instead of I using my words for things which are not good or things which are harmful, I'm actually preventing myself from doing the things which are harmful, not just to other people, but also to myself.
Yeah, good point. So very similar. In Buddhism, we also believe that idle chatter or gossiping is also part of wrong speech. We have 4 right speeches: refrain from telling lies, idle chatter, harsh speech, and divisive speech. So yes, gossiping is one of them we try to avoid. But a lot of people love to gossip. A lot of people like to have this idle chatter, probably for social reasons. And the rationale behind of refraining from this gossiping is because we need to build our spiritual muscle. A lot of times this temptation, very interesting, then the mind just follow, Then there's no strength to pull the mind back. Refraining from this chatter is a kind of strength. But of course, there's people who take it to the extremes, totally antisocial and don't want to talk. So that's another extreme. So the true strength lies in a person who actually achieves certain calm and they talk when necessary. Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing from you guys is, what I'm thinking to myself is actually control. People do feel a lot of things. People want to say a lot of things. Practicing silence is actually practicing control. So if you know you're going to hurt someone, or if you know that this is a sin, just keep quiet. Or rather, in today's generation, they say if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. And we move on from that. I want to talk about finding strength in stillness, right? What is actually the meaning of stillness? So let me give you an example, right? Recently, I think I found myself in a drama, online drama, and I was very angry, right? I was super angry. I'm I need to reply this because it was something that I did not do, or rather it was half-truths. While I was in a very angry state, the interesting thing that happened was that I opened Instagram, and then a reel came out, and it was an Islamic reel. And the reel said masculinity in Islam is actually staying silent, allowing the person to grow or allowing your partner to grow. It's not really a lot about muscles and so on and so forth. And it's actually also about providing. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm a Muslim man. I'll believe in this. I'll keep quiet, right? But inside of me, it's still raging, right? And I guess the question is, if I do practice any type of faith, then how do I remove myself from the situation completely, or how do I practice this to its best?
So I think what Pra actually mentioned earlier was really beautiful about the concept of silence. I think silence, stillness, they go hand in hand. The thing about silence is that typically we would think that it is something that is paralyzing. It's something that, when I'm silent means I'm not going to do anything. Means whatever harm that's happening in front of my eyes is just going to happen, whatever, and all the best. Because that's what we think silence does to us. But silence really is something that is not passive. It is something that is active. Like you mentioned, right? I am going to allow my partner to grow, so therefore I'm offering this stillness, I'm offering this silence. But what does it really mean? Does it mean that, if, for example, my partner continues to do something that harms herself, then I just allow for that to happen? Because silence or stillness here, it tells us that it is something that is actionable. It means that it is a moment where I am doing that self-control. It's a moment where I'm able to also give that form of acknowledgement that, yes, I'm here to support you and I'm allowing you that room for growth. So when you see silence and stillness from that perspective, it tells us that, hey, I'm actually doing something. And the fact that I'm choosing silence, choosing stillness, that in itself is an action. But when it comes to, this concerning thoughts about, I'm feeling angry on the inside, I'm not able to say anything at this moment in time. I think what we really want to achieve at that moment is to be able to come from that point of calmness, right? To be able to balance what we feel, to be able to balance what we have in our thought processes. Because if we think about, the time of the Prophet ﷺ, a lot of times he would always find himself in moments of solitude, in moments of silence, not the fact that, he wants to remove himself from the community, but he really wanted to be at a space where he was able to think properly, to regulate his emotions before he decides on what he wants to do next. And I think that's the kind of wisdom and virtue that we really want to learn from our Prophet. Because when we are able to do more of that, we become people who are much more mindful, people who are much more aware that I don't act upon my emotions. Because typically, like you say, I open up Instagram, I open up social media, people are coming up with all of these comments, and straight away I feel like I want to attack, or I want to reply them with something that would help them make sense of the situation. But if you think about it, if I allow moments for pause, moments of stillness before I actually react, that is actually responding. Because responding is giving myself time to think it through, to think about, what is the most merciful way to do this? What is the most merciful way to support? What is the most merciful way to reply? And you can actually try this out. Try to reply to a comment 1 minute after you read it, and try to reply it 1 week after you have read it. I'm sure 1 week later you'll be calmer.
But sometimes people don't deserve mercy. You get what I mean? Sometimes we feel that way.
Yeah.
So I guess sometimes it's very, very hard to stay faithful to your faith or whatever you believe in, right? That's why when I ask that question, it's like, how then do we actually, what are some methods to actually practice it, right? Is it just, I just put my phone away and think about what will my actions be? What are the consequences after that? Or how does that actually look like?
Okay, so if you're asking from a Islamic perspective, right? That moment of stillness, pause or silence allow us to actually evaluate what's a priority right now. Is my priority proving a point? Is my priority giving myself some form of calmness and sanity at this moment in time? Because hate comments don't come just once a day, it comes a lot, right? Every other day. And in terms of the practical sense is to be able to first ask ourselves, how can we be intentional in this moment, right? What is my intention in responding? What is my intention in whatever it is that I want to say to the people? And as you mentioned, right? How are we able to actually do this without feeling like we are afflicting ourselves in a different sense or a different way? The concept of Islam, it always tells us the importance of, at the end of the day, I want to treat people in the way how God wants me to treat them. Sometimes, when we take out the spiritual or the religious aspect of things, we always think about, oh, I want to respond because this is what I feel. I want to say this because this is what I think as a person.
But there's a lot of people like that. I agree with
Yes,
you.
definitely. And sometimes we are placed in those situations, right? But it's beautiful if we can just give ourselves a moment to think about, what does God want me to respond in this moment? What is pleasing to God? Because at the end of the day, my interactions with people is also a form of worship. And sometimes that hurt that we feel is also a moment of worship if we are able to choose God first before our emotions.
What about you, Pra? What are some methods you use if, let's say, you feel angry or you feel some sort of hate towards something? Like, what sort of practices do you do to keep yourself away from acting on it?
Very good question. Because anger and greed is in Buddhism is one of the hardest defilements to overcome. So only a person when they are very close to enlightenment or like a very holy saint, then they are free from anger. So anger is like 99% most people will have one. So if we face certain situation we're unhappy about, we react with anger. That's when the spiritual training comes in. Maybe meditation techniques, certain prayers to repeat over and over again. So the stillness is actually more like a product. More like a product. It's not you want to have stillness means you have it. No. So of course a person can kind of avoid it. You don't reply. But then the inner grumbling is still there. Inner grumbling. So the prayers and the reflections are actually to counter this grumbling and to counter. So it's all about practice. So the more you practice, the more like second nature you are to overcoming this issue.
We move on to inner peace. So I guess this word is being used so much, right? Inner peace. Like some people use it as an excuse as well. Like some people are so avoidant of issues where they don't want to settle the issue. They say, I'm going to protect my inner peace and pull myself away from this. But what they actually need to do is actually settle the situation. That's why I say they use it as an excuse, right? So for a monk and for an ustazah, right? What does inner peace actually feel like, right? Because we know what it means. And if I were to assume what inner peace feels like, is like I don't get affected by a lot of things. I don't feel the need to act on a lot of things because I'm at peace with myself. And I know and I understand that when people act or when people do something, they're actually exposing more of themselves than I am. So however I act, whatever I say, however I react is exposing my character. So I rather, inner peace. Is that correct, or what does actually inner peace feel like?
Yeah, so actually it's totally up to the individual choice because the context or the situation varies. It depends on the situation. Let's say the online thing is your livelihood. Then you need to give like official response. If not, you just leave it there and then things might get back to worse. So you need to weigh the situation and then I would say respond accordingly. So of course, I do teach this in my class. If a person totally choose not to react, not to respond, totally don't care. Somebody faint in front of you, don't even want to help because I want to maintain my inner peace. We don't call that the right kind of peace. We call that callousness, like bocha. So it's actually a wrong quality. That is like straying off the path. So the real peace comes from having trained and having certain level of contentment, and you respond accordingly, you help accordingly, but emotionally still quite stable.
I think that's a very beautiful expression of peace. I love that you highlighted about things which constitutes healthy kind of peace and things which are unhealthy, right? In terms of peace, in Islam we learn a little bit more about ourselves by learning more about God, and that when we take a look at the concept of God, He actually has His 99 names. And that's very interesting because we know God as Allah, which a lot of Muslims attribute Him to that name, but He has 99 other names, and one of the many names that He has is actually As-Salam. As-Salam means the peace, the giver of peace. And I think if, from the Islamic perspective, if we can start from that point, it would be really beautiful because it tells us that peace does not come from ourselves. Peace comes from God. Peace comes from Allah, and it is to be able to find whatever that we need from the God who gives that. So if I want peace, the first area of focus is to be able to turn to God and say, God, you are the creator of peace, from you belongs peace, I want this peace from you. Because I think especially living in today's time, we tend to find peace in a lot of things, right? In people, in relationships, in the jobs that we have, in our experiences. There was one time in my life where I find peace in ice cream. But
Wow.
it ended like in 2 minutes lah, because once the ice cream finished, then there goes my peace, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to realize that when I find peace in God, that is where I know that that kind of peace is eternal, is not temporary, and that He is my creator, and therefore He knows the kind of peace that I need. And I think which is why Prao, you mentioned beautifully about how it goes back to the individual, right? Based on the kind of peace that they experience, the kind of peace that you need. But more importantly is to also realize that peace means, we think that, when I'm peaceful means nothing is going to go wrong, everything will be okay, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to feel hurt. But peace really means that even when, just imagine you are on a boat and then you're just trying to sail through the seas, right? There'll be storm along the way, right? But peace tells you that, okay, yes, there's going to be a storm ahead of me. I'm going through this storm and the waves are going to get crazy, but I know that I'm not going to get lost. I know that I have a sense of direction. I know that I will still sail through this storm, but I know I will get to where I need to. And I think that could be one kind of expression of peace, knowing that storms will happen, difficulties will happen in our lives, people will continue to test us. But we know that that peace will anchor us, like how a boat is in a storm, and they are able to go towards their rightful direction.
So it's kind of like the silver lining. So let's say now I'm in a very bad situation, and how I find peace is I look at what I already have and know that this is just a bump on the road. I guess it's acceptance.
Yeah.
Right? So accepting that these types of things happen in life is not necessarily like I have to answer it, not necessarily I have to act on it. It's just something that happens in life. If I can settle it, I settle it, and then I move on.
I think acceptance is beautiful. Actually, before acceptance, there's this step called acknowledgement.
Okay.
To be able to acknowledge what's happening in your life, to be able to take note of what you are struggling with at that moment in time. Because I don't think we can achieve peace if we hide our feelings under the rug. If we say that, no lah, I'm not feeling angry, I'm okay, I'm peaceful. But actually, we are not peaceful.
Yeah.
So to be able to acknowledge first before we actually accept the situation. But I think the way we talk to ourselves is also really important. Like, instead of saying, oh, this is happening to me in my life, can I say this is happening for me? Because essentially everything from the perspective of Islam, everything happens because of the permission of God lah.
And let's talk about a little bit about like strength in solitude. What does that mean to you guys?
Okay. So I think everyone knows about like the COVID, like lockdown or this circuit breaker. If a person is not spiritually ready for peace, they'll go crazy. They want to do all kinds of silly things because the mind cannot accept or don't want to find peace. Some people don't want to find peace. But if, let's say, a person, if they acknowledge the downsides of chasing certain entertainment for too much, then they really want the peace. There's some kind of maturity. They want to look forward. There's a demand for it. Then, solitude environment might be a good opportunity, a good conducive environment to cultivate the peace, but with spiritual peers, very important. You cannot do it alone. You need some kind of support system, and then you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, strength in solitude is to realize that strength looks different for everybody, and that there's not one version of strength that we need in all circumstances. There will be moments where, for me, strength looks like choosing to be silent. There are moments where strength looks like helping a friend. There are moments where strength looks like, just sitting, being present with myself and having that conversation with God, having that conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important because in Islam, we understand that strength comes from God. It doesn't purely come from ourselves. We can work on all of the, ailments in the world, but if we're not finding it in God, then we're not getting like the true full or the absolute strength that we actually need. Because we might think that, I need this version of strength while I'm going through this hardship. But for all we know, we need a different kind of strength from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while we go through this particular hardship that we are moving through. So I think it's to be able to anchor ourselves in the reality that I cannot take this next step. I cannot even wake up in the morning without God giving me that strength every single day. And even when I want to choose silence or stillness in that particular moment, I also need God to help me with that as well.
For the audience watching, right, what are some ways I can meditate So you know what I mean, like now again in today's world, so like meditation is a huge thing, right? There's a lot of apps that teach you how to meditate. Some people even meditate in a sauna, so on and so forth. In the religious way, what does meditation actually look like?
Okay, so meditation is more of a thought process, not so much on the physical, the posture. So a lot of people try to attempt to, like maybe to follow the Buddha statue and they sit, lotus, cross-legged. But what's in the mind? So the mind is daydreaming or sleeping, and that's not meditation. So we have like actual kind of like the software going on. So any reflection that reduces greed and anger, then that's right reflection. So normally my classes, for example, we use loving kindness to overcome anger. So we start to wish may all beings be well and happy. So we kind of like repeat it like a mantra, keep on repeating. So of course we also have reflection on the Buddha. Sometimes deity is different heavenly beings. Any good qualities they have, we just keep on repeating, and that will help to reduce those negative traits.
So is it right for me to say that every meditation session there needs to be a goal?
Yes, there is goal.
So there has to be something that you are meditating about.
Yes.
It's not like a, well, how you see like when we go on Instagram. I don't know if you use Instagram, but if you go on Instagram and then you go to the people living in Bali, they wake up, morning meditation 3 minutes. I'm like, 3 minutes is too short to meditate, no? Right? That's not a meditation. That's like you're doing it for the Instagram. So I went to read up on meditation, and I actually do meditate myself also. And sometimes I just do like guided meditations, but I actually, while I found peace in it, I feel more calm and everything. I actually never knew what what was the proper way to do it, like how the Buddhists do it and everything, because that one looks like very legit, like ours is just like whatever it is. But in a Islam way or a Muslim way, like what does meditation actually look like?
Okay, I love that Pra actually mentioned about reflections. Because did you know that in the Quran there's like more than 80 places in the Quran that invites us to think, ponder, reflect, and this is very interesting because really, when we learn from Islam, everything begins from our soul, everything begins from our heart. And yes, as much as our mind is concerned, why the heart is really important, because the Prophet actually mentioned that there's this morsel of flesh in the human being that if we take care of it, if it is sound, the entire body will be sound. If it is corrupted, then the entire body will be corrupted. And then the Prophet said, Ala wahiya al-qalbu, verily that is the heart. So the works of the heart is really important because it ensures the peace of the entire body. If my heart can be peaceful, the entire body can be peaceful. If I don't start to take care of my heart, that is where the entire body will be disrupted, it will be confused, and it will be going through difficult experiences in life. So I think starting from a point of reflection is a really beautiful place to be able to reflect on really why am I here? What is my purpose? Whenever I wake up in the morning, what is it that God wants me to pursue today? God has given me all of these things, as you mentioned, right? To be grateful for whatever it is that I have. But the question is, how can I actually utilize it for good? How can I bring whatever that God gives me closer to Him? So reflections is really important in our day-to-day. Like we can mention, in Islam, we have our Solat, our 5 daily prayers. In Islam, we also have our dhikrs, our means of remembrance of God, right? We also mention the names of God repetitively, many a times, basically. So we call it dhikr. But the core of dhikr, the core of prayers is actually to be able to reflect and remember Allah. Because a person can just be doing, the physical actions of prayer, but my mind is somewhere else. I can be reciting names of God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can be reciting things from the Quran, but my mind can literally be somewhere else. So reflection offers us to be present in that particular moment and to be able to think about what's the most important thing right now. And for the most part is to think about Allah. For the most part is to think about how can this moment be a means that I can connect better with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I hope that helps to be able to go beyond our physical rituals, but to take that moment to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
What are like some, to end this, right, for the people watching, what are like some simple ways, if let's say I want to start finding inner peace, or let's say I want to start learning how to meditate, and maybe some forms of meditation is too kind of high level for me, I just want to do something simple. What is something that the people at home can do immediately?
Okay, so you need to find like a short phrase, anything that's inspiring or positive, can be the qualities of God, qualities of Buddha, anything wholesome, and then you kind of repeat it even when you're doing monotonous work. So it's like 2 in 1. You can do it solely like silently in formal meditation. You can do it when doing chores. When I was in Thailand, I was instructed, I have an assignment. My teacher asked me to memorize the monk's precepts. That is your meditation. So I have to recite it while going for alms round. I take the bowl, walk to the village, and I have to keep reciting. When I'm doing chores and sweeping the temple, I have to keep reciting. So that's you have to do 2 in 1, no choice. Yeah.
Sorry, when you recite, what do you feel? Do you feel like, oh my God, why am I reciting it for a very long time?
If you do it correctly, it will lead to peace. Then you get to understand how to find the peace that transcends not doing. Normally we talk about you want to find peace, you avoid, right? Not doing, right? So how to get the peace while doing something?
Because you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So you do something you hate, but in your mind you're actually repeating.
Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. That's your training.
Yep.
That's crazy. That's tough. Ustaz, how about you? What are some simple ways, to the Muslims watching this, if let's say praying is too hard for them, what are some simpler ways for them to find peace or to meditate?
I really love that question because I think a lot of times we think that I need to do something big, right? To actually achieve peace or to actually find that moment of stillness. Reality is we cannot take a leave 365 days a year to just find that peace, right?
Yeah.
We still need to work, we still need to study, we still need to show up for our community. So I think it is to be able to find pockets of time throughout the day to be able to do more of reflections. I think that's going to be very powerful. The Quran, Allah SWT invites us to reflect on the creations of God. So it could be reflecting on the people that you see. It could be reflecting on, every single day you walk under this sky, but you don't always pause to take a look at what's up there, right? The skies, the cloud, the birds that is up there. To be able to just pause and take a moment to look out of your window and to tell yourself, wow, God actually created this. God actually created the trees. God actually created the clouds. And that while God continues to take care of all of my affairs today, He is also taking care of the affairs of the clouds that is passing by. He is also taking care of the food for the birds on the trees. So it is to be able to interact with the creations of Allah, or in other words, nature around us. And again, you don't have to go to a park to actually do that. You can actually literally look out the window, take a look at what's out there, and take a moment to pause and be amazed in the way how God created all of these creations. Yeah. So hopefully that's simple enough.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but this has been very, very insightful. And to the people watching, I hope you learned a thing or two. But the biggest thing I think you need to learn is that peace is actually in yourself. It's not in Bali. Again, thank you both so much. I think the biggest thing that I learned is actually there's a lot of overlap. I think finding peace in the different religions, the practices are the same. And I feel like a lot of people don't see that. Actually, there are very simple ways to find peace. And I really hope when the people that are watching this, whenever they are going through something or they feel like life is very tough, look out the window, take a minute of silence or of stillness, and maybe you can find peace within yourself. Thank you guys so much. Maybe next time we will invite you guys again for another topic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for having
No
us.
worries. But to the people watching at home, please do stay tuned because we have a very special guest to give you a weekly news roundup. Who it is, I still do not know at all.
Good.
Why Zaidean is different from other agents?
Okay, that's to say, number one, we have experience. We started both about 2007, so we have seen 4 different cycles: the up market, the down market, and also the stagnant market. Last 4 years, it was actually an up market where properties sell by itself. But today, especially in this current market, when supply is much more than what is available, this is where I would say that this is actually our market because we have been in this market before. So secondly, we are different because we are a believer of system. It means that we need to ensure that the processes will always be the same and we will tweak according to the market conditions. An example is technically it's a process lah. When clients come inquire with us, the first thing first is we will need to see as much documents or data from them. We want to ensure that number one, they have the affordability lah, not only to sell but to purchase. And the most key thing that we did that others don't is technically we always think not about only just purchasing. What happens after 5 years or beyond? So this is actually key because we want to ensure that the clients that we serve, because property is so expensive right now and is actually hedged against inflation. Okay, what I mean by that is when they retire at the age of 55 or 65, that property will be the one is going to supplement during their retirement years when they are not working. So this actually involves a lot of calculation, a lot of understanding and transparency between us and the client. Alhamdulillah, so far the clients that we meet, of course we try to understand their needs and wants, and from there every client is different. We tailor based on the concept that we have. We always give them 3 or 4 different options, and at the end of the day we respect the decision that is actually made from them. And thirdly, we are consistent. What we say, we deliver. We are not just purely just doing like contents, but at the end of the day we make things happen. So that is actually the 3 key differences when you hire Zaidean Property Agent.
Assalamualaikum everyone, I'm Sophie and welcome to your weekly roundup of headlines you didn't know you cared about, but you probably should. Let's get into it. First up, Singapore's favorite property heroes, Zaidean, are back at it again. The award-winning team just bagged another trophy, this time for excellence in the real estate service. They've officially solved more housing dramas than some couples have solved emotional ones. Faster than you can say, it's complicated. At this rate, even Cupid might need to outsource his matchmaking to Zaidean Realty because clearly they're better at pairing people with homes than people are with each other. Congrats Team Zaidean, love might be blind, but your listings sure aren't. Next, 3 women who were charged earlier this year for organizing a pro-Palestine march near the Istana have been cleared of all charges. The walk happened on 2nd February from Orchard Road to Kavanagh to show solidarity with Palestinians. The judge ruled that there wasn't enough evidence that they organized the march, and they, quote, acted peacefully. And so for our friends up north who say Singaporeans don't speak up, we do. We just do it with court approval. And some might say it's 3.25 times less effective, but that's Singapore's activism for you. We are concise, we are polite, and legally sound. Up next, here's something heartwarming. Since 2020, nearly 60 homeless Singaporeans have found temporary shelter around 4 mosques in Singapore. That's Masjid Qasim and Al-Ansar in the east, Hang Jebat and Ashakirin in the west. And these are people who needed a safe place to sleep. They got a mattress, they got a charger, they got a shower, and something priceless, dignity. Proof that Rahmatan lil Alamin, mercy to all creation, isn't just a slogan, it's literally a mattress away. And big love to the mosque volunteers and Muiz for keeping lights on, both literally and spiritually. And over the weekend, more than 1,200 migrant workers and Singaporeans came together to celebrate Deepavali, a cultural carnival in Sembawang. The event, organized by AGWO, had food, music, kabaddi matches, and more selfies than your average event. It's the kind of Singapore we love to see. One where we can share meals, share stories, and most importantly, share light. So to everyone who celebrated last week, happy Deepavali. May your homes be full of joy, full of peace, and your WhatsApp groups full of memes from your aunts and uncles. And don't forget the gossip you will hear that you probably shouldn't know about. And remember, light travels fast, but gossip travels faster. And lastly, over in Malaysia, one influencer with 40,000 followers has gone viral for all the wrong reasons. She apparently asked a local restaurant for a free family dinner in exchange for exposure. The internet, of course, said, "Sis, you've exposed enough." Which makes me wonder, what's Singapore's market rate for followers now, Like 500 followers gets you tepeng, maybe 5,000 gets you a plate of nasi lemak, and maybe 50,000 gets you a free entry to Zouk. But still, if you are going to ask for free food, at least post the review, because exposure doesn't pay the bills or the sambal. Anyways, that's all for this week's headlines and stories of light, love, housings, and hashtags gone wrong. Back to you, Dew. Stay woke, stay halal, and if you're asking for favors online, at least offer teh tarik in return.
There was something that the Ustazah said earlier that enlightened me a little bit. And when she said, when you find stillness and ask yourself is your purpose here, what does Allah want you to do? It hit me because for the longest time of my life, being what people label me as a liberal, I do sometimes ask myself, why am I going through this experience? Why didn't I get the opportunity to learn about the religion from a very young age? But when I start doing shows like this, or when I start talking about my journey in Islam, I realized that there was actually a lot of people like me. People who are discovering their religion at a very young age. At a very old age. I'm not saying that is my full purpose, but I guess that's maybe one of the reasons why God put me through that experience. For me to now openly share my journey of understanding and learning about my religion with you guys and telling you guys that actually you guys are not alone. So I think that is actually the biggest takeaway from that conversation that I've learned. And I would like to thank the Ustazah and also Pra for enlightening me. So the takeaway for this episode is actually very simple. Number 1, make space for silence. Number 2, find strength in stillness. And lastly, let your heart rest so your spirit can grow. Thank you guys so much for watching. To our guests, thank you guys for joining and sharing with us your knowledge. And to you, people at home, I would like to remind you guys that silence isn't emptiness or weakness, but actually a doorway to clarity and compassion. May we all find moments of stillness and carry peace in our hearts. Assalamualaikum, everybody. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week on the Weekly Deen Show.
I think sometimes when we speak about stillness, we feel like we need to do something big for ourselves. But maybe an invitation for all of us is to wake up every single morning instead of checking our phones, is to be able to check the state of our minds, the state of our hearts, knowing that we want to start with the world. Before we engage with the world, we engage with ourselves, inshallah.
Through this discussion, I find that the human heart or human mind is very similar. You cannot achieve peace just by doing nothing. You need to do some reflection, you need to put in some effort. So there you go.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you.